Look, I'm a bit of an awkward dude, but I'm pretty sociable despite that. I've been using dating apps for years to meet new people, mostly just for fun. Thing is, I'm super oblivious. Implicit stuff flies right over my head. I take things literally, like really literally. So about a year ago, I matched with this girl on an app. Her pics weren't anything special, but like I said, I wasn't looking for a supermodel, just someone cool to hang with. We chatted for a bit, and she seemed alright, fun enough, I guess. After a while, she asked for my number and called me up, inviting me to her place for coffee and a chat. I took it at face value, coffee and talking, nothing more. Sounded chill, so I was like, why not? I hopped on the tram and met her at the station. We walked about 10 minutes to her apartment, which, I gotta say, had a weird vibe right off the bat. It smelled funky, like a mix of wet dog and some kind of herbal incense or something. She mentioned she had 3 dogs and was into yoga, meditation, and massages, which kinda explained the smell. I wasn't expecting anything spicy to go down, just a casual hang. But then she dropped this line about me staying the night and banging all day. I'm not gonna lie, my brain just kinda skipped over it like it was nothing. I brushed it off, thinking she was joking, or whatever. Plus, I had plans that night. I was throwing a party at my place later, around 11 p.m., but I never mentioned that to her. So we sat down, drank some coffee, and man, that coffee was rough. Like, straight up terrible, bitter, and weird tasting. I powered through it while we talked. Then she offered to give me a hand massage. I figured, hey, she's not asking me to strip down and lie on a massage table, so what's the harm? While she was rubbing my hands, I noticed some notebooks on the table nearby. Out of curiosity, I flipped through one. There were all these drawings with little captions written in weird places, like random messages tied to specific spots. For example, one said something like "prevent cold" in the back of the book. Kinda quirky, but I didn't think much of it. She started massaging my ring finger, and I noticed her breathing got heavier, like she was really into it. I glanced at the notebook again, flipping to a drawing of a left hand. The more she pressed on my ring finger, the heavier her breathing got. It was intense, like, I swear, she was almost acting like she was having a moment. Then I saw it, in tiny writing next to the ring finger in the drawing. It said penis. Yeah, penis. I thought, okay, that's freaking weird, but I didn't say anything. I just let her finish the massage, trying not to make it awkward. When she was done, she mentioned that some people feel dizzy after a hand massage and said I could lie down on her bed if I needed to. Right on cue, I started feeling super dizzy. Like, my vision was getting blurry, and I was struggling to stay steady. She noticed I wasn't looking great and seemed concerned, but I excused myself to the bathroom to wash my hands since she'd used some sweet-smelling oil. In there, I could barely see my own reflection in the mirror, let alone text or call anyone. My mind started racing. Between the awful coffee and the weird massage, I got this paranoid image of waking up naked, tied to her bed or something worse. I was freaking out. Then her phone rang, and I overheard her say a friend was stopping by for a few minutes. I thought, oh no, this is it, I'm done for. But weirdly, she sounded disappointed about the friend coming over, which made me feel a bit relieved. When the friend showed up, he was actually pretty cool, a history teacher, super chill. We talked for a bit, and after a few minutes, he said he had to bounce. That was my chance. I told her I'd text her when I got home, just to be polite, and got the heck out of there. When I got home, I was hit with one of the worst headaches of my life. I waited it out, and that night at my party, I didn't breathe a word about what happened. I knew I'd done something kinda dumb, and I didn't want my friends giving me a hard time about it. She texted me a few times after, but I never responded. I still don't know if she actually spiked the coffee, or if the dizziness was just from the massage, stress, or whatever else. All I know is that coffee tasted like garbage, and I learned a big lesson. When someone invites you over for coffee, they're probably not just talking about coffee. That whole experience taught me to be way more careful about trusting strangers and to pay attention to those implicit signals I'm so bad at picking up on. I'll be honest, my main goal going into college was to smoke some weed, party as much as possible, and do just enough schoolwork to not get kicked out. I wasn't exactly aiming for the dean's list, you know? I applied to a few schools but only got into one, a small college tucked away in the mountains of New Hampshire with like 3,500 undergrads total. It was tiny, super remote, and I showed up not knowing a single soul. On the first day, while everyone else was doing those cheesy icebreaker games or giving campus tours to their families, I decided to skip all that and wander off. I found this little path behind a cafeteria that led to a small stream I'd noticed on the drive-in. Just meandering, taking it all in, As I'm walking along the stream, I spot this dude a little further down, cutting through some trees. He's holding something that looks like a joint, the way he's pinching it between his fingers. I figure, hey, maybe this guy's my first college friend. So I stroll over, introduce myself, and sure enough, his name's Nate. He's smoking some really good stuff, and he seems pretty chill, so I'm thinking we might get along. He's short, maybe 5'5", a bit stocky, and I notice right away he's got this weird laugh. Kind of nervous, high-pitched, and every time he laughs, he looks off to the side, then glances back at me from the corner of his eye. It's odd, like I clocked it within the first 30 seconds of meeting him. I figured maybe he's just socially awkward or self-conscious about his teeth or something. I was raised not to judge, so I let it slide. Nate and I started hanging out a lot after that. We'd play video games, drink, smoke, typical college stuff. It wasn't some deep friendship. It was just two guys who liked getting messed up and having a good time. But I noticed other people in my dorm didn't really vibe with him. Like my other friends seemed uneasy around him, though no one ever said why outright. I didn't feel some big bond with him either. It was just convenient, We were both into the same kind of debauchery. Then something happened that I managed to bury deep in my brain until just recently. One weekend, my roommate was back home visiting family, and Nate's roommate had his girlfriend over, which in college terms meant Nate was crashing with me. It wasn't a big deal. It felt like a no-brainer. We got absolutely trashed, smoking a ton, drinking, ordering pizza, and playing video games in my dorm room. We were both sitting in desk chairs, passing a ball back and forth like idiots, just laughing and being dumb. At one point, Nate hands me the ball, leans in close, and in this low, steady voice says, "I'm gonna kill you." I'm not gonna lie, we were both out of it, but that hit me like a brick. He'd never been aggressive before, even when he was this wasted, and he definitely never said anything like that. I'm terrible with confrontation, so I just laughed it off, saying, "Nah, dude, don't do that, bro." Trying to play it like he was joking, or maybe too into Mortal Kombat or something. Our room was small, so we had bunk beds. I was on the top bunk because my roommate was a bigger guy. Didn't want to climb down to pee in the middle of the night. We'd strung up some Christmas lights along the ceiling that we just kept on all the time for vibe. I'm half deaf, so when I sleep, I roll onto my good ear to muffle sounds into the pillow, which makes me a pretty heavy sleeper. Anyway, that night I wake up randomly, feeling a bit nauseous. I open my eyes slowly, and there's Nate, standing on the edge of his mattress on the bottom bunk, gripping the railings of my top bunk, staring right at my face while I was sleeping. My eyes go wide, and I snap awake, sitting up and banging my head on the wall behind me. "Whoa, what the hell, dude?" I say, my heart pounding. He turns his head, gives me that same creepy sideways glance and nervous laugh from the day we met, lit up in these weird splashes of color from the Christmas lights. He puts a finger to his lips, still smiling, and whispers, "Shoo," before hopping down and just walking out of the room. It was like 3 a.m., and I have no clue where he went. I didn't tell anyone about it. I buried that memory as deep as I could and avoided hanging out with Nate alone after that. I'd make excuses whenever he wanted to chill, though we ended up at a few parties together. He never brought it up, and neither did I. The next year, I transferred to another school for financial reasons, not because of Nate, and I pretty much forgot about the whole thing. That was about 15 years ago. I'm 33 now. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from an old roommate from that New Hampshire school. I've had the same phone number forever because I made up a dumb little song to remember it, and it's easy to memorize. He goes, "Yo, you remember that guy Nate we used to hang with at the dorms?" Turns out, Nate killed 2 of his friends with a hunting knife and a fishing spear on a camping trip about a year ago. Apparently, he was mixing his meds with booze and drugs and just lost it. What messes with me the most is wondering if he told those guys he was going to kill them, the way he told me. Did they see that creepy sideways smile and nervous laugh as the last thing before it happened? I don't know, but I'm pretty damn sure I dodged a bullet that night in the dorm. It's been years, but thinking about it still gives me chills, knowing how close I might have come to something really bad. I'm a 17-year-old high school girl, not exactly the strongest physically, living in a small town in the Philippines. It's the kind of place surrounded by rice fields, with a highway cutting straight through it. You get the picture. Pretty rural, lots of open space. Part of my weekend routine is going for an early morning jog, usually around 5 a.m. My go-to route is from my house, right in the middle of town, to this little hill with an awesome view of the town at sunrise. To get there, I have to jog along the side of the highway. Sometimes, especially early in the morning, a thick fog rolls in for about an hour, and when you're in it, you can barely see 10 or 15 feet ahead before everything turns white. One Saturday, I decided to go for my usual jog and invited a friend my age to come along since he runs the same route sometimes. We left my house at 5 a.m. and headed toward the highway. As expected, the fog was super thick, blanketing everything. Cars passing by had their headlights on, and there were a few one-way sections because of road repairs. Our country's been working on widening national roads lately. We stuck to the side of the highway, passing a couple of roadwork zones, each about 100 meters long. Everything was fine at first. We were a bit tired, but feeling okay. Weirdly, though, we barely saw anyone else out there, which was unusual because that hill's view is kind of a local gem, and you normally spot at least a few other joggers. Then we came across another roadwork area, not far from the hill. There was this guy crouched down on the asphalt, wearing a dirty orange vest and a beat-up hard hat. We couldn't see his face, and he seemed to be messing with something in his hands. Maybe tools, we thought. There was no one else around, just me, my friend, and this guy with the fog still thick as heck. My friend gave me a look, signaling to keep our distance, and I nodded, sticking close to him. As we got nearer, we heard the guy humming this strange tune under his breath. It wasn't super weird on its own, but it gave off an odd vibe, you know. We kept moving, trying to ignore him, but as we got closer, the guy started acting really strange. He stopped humming, froze for a second as we passed, and then broke out into this loud, creepy laugh. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was dry, almost sinister, like something out of a horror movie. It freaked us out big time. We didn't speed up right away, trying to convince ourselves he was just messing with us, but the laughing didn't stop. It just kept going louder and creepier, and we realized this was no joke. I can't even describe that laugh beyond saying it was chilling, like he meant it. We picked up the pace, not looking back, as the hill started coming into view through the fog. I was gasping for air, my lungs burning, but I didn't dare stop. My friend was right behind me, pushing himself just as hard. I couldn't tell if the guy was following us, but the fear was real. I didn't know what would happen if we slowed down. When I finally glanced back, he'd stopped laughing but was now standing up straight, glaring at us through the fog. He shouted something in our language, his voice full of rage, and that's when the adrenaline kicked in. I ran faster than I ever thought I could, my friend right there with me, until we finally reached the top of the hill. We were completely wiped out when we got there. I nearly collapsed onto a cement bench, my legs shaking, my chest heaving. We stayed there for a solid hour, just trying to catch our breath. The fog was still thick, but as it started to lift, my friend let out this nervous, almost comedic laugh, and I couldn't help but join in. It was like we were trying to shake off the terror by laughing it away. Once the fog cleared, we walked back home, still rattled. I was starving since I hadn't eaten breakfast yet, and all I could think about was getting food in me. On the way back, we passed the roadwork area again, and the guy was gone. The only people around were actual construction workers directing traffic, and none of them looked anything like the man we saw. When I got home, I told my parents what happened. They brushed it off, saying it was probably just some nut job in town who stole a construction outfit or something. Maybe they were right, but the whole thing felt so off. Why was he dressed like a worker? Why was he crouched down, pretending to do something? And that laugh, it wasn't just someone trying to pull a prank. It felt wrong. I haven't gone jogging in the fog since then. Something about that guy's behavior, the way he went from humming to laughing to yelling, just stuck with me. The The fact that he was wearing that worker's outfit makes it even creepier, like he was trying to blend in or lure someone in. I'm so glad I had my friend with me that day. If I'd been alone, I don't know what would have happened. It's one of those things that still gives me chills when I think about it. Back in 2012, I was 15 years old, a white kid, about 5 feet 11 inches, growing up in a rough part of the Minneapolis area. Living in a place like that teaches you to be street smart. You learn to read people quick. Gang signs mean steer clear, cops mean turn the other way, and if someone's running, there's a reason. My parents worked hard to give us a decent life despite the circumstances, and one of the coolest things they did was buy a cabin way up north. I won't say exactly where for privacy, but it's far, like proper wilderness. That summer was a good one for my family. Mom got a raise, and we even bought 2 used ATVs. There were 4-wheeler trails everywhere up there, and my friend and I spent half the summer exploring them, fishing, swimming, just living it up. All I had back then was an iPod for taking pictures, but it was enough to capture the memories. It was early August, a foggy but decent day, about 70 degrees out. My friend and I decided to take the ATVs out to reach another lake about 2 miles from our cabin. There's this road that cuts across the trail, with a little parking area, a map, and a bridge nearby. My friend was obsessed with geocaching. You know, that treasure hunting game where you find hidden stuff using coordinates. I didn't care for it, but he was all about it. When we got to the parking area, he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna look for a geocache real quick. It's nearby." I shrugged and wandered down the hill toward the bridge to kill time. The bridge was in this valley area, surrounded by tall grass on both sides, with a dirt road running through it. It was super quiet, no one else was around, and we'd only seen one other person the whole time we were out. I was just chilling, dangling my legs off the edge of the bridge, snapping pics with my iPod, when I heard a car in the distance. The sound got louder, breaking the silence, and this small Ford Contour rolled up, stopping at the top of the hill on the other side of the valley. For a second, I thought it was weird. I figured maybe the driver saw me on the bridge and thought I was about to jump or something dumb. So I grabbed my iPod, stood up, and started jogging back toward the parking lot where our ATVs were. As I'm heading back, I hear the car's engine rev. I glance over my shoulder, and the car is speeding down the hill, coming right at me. I didn't want to look panicked, but my heart was racing, so I picked up my pace to a jog. The car slowed down and pulled up right next to me as I was moving. The driver rolled down his window, and I got a good look at him. Older guy, maybe in his 60s, greasy looking, with a car full of junk that reeked of cigarettes. He goes, "Hey, you should get in my car." I tried to play it cool, like, "Nah, I'm good, man," making it clear I was uncomfortable. He gave me this creepy smile and said in a raspy voice, "I don't think you have an option, kid." As he said that, I saw the glove box pop open and a gun came into view. My stomach dropped. I didn't think, I just bolted, running faster than I ever had in my life. The bend to the parking lot was only about 50 feet away, and I could hear his car shift into gear behind me. That old Ford Contour gave me just enough time to make it around the corner before I heard him speed up. I sprinted up the driveway to the lot, yelling at my friend to start the ATVs. The car screeched into the parking lot just as we fired them up. We peeled out, leaving our helmets behind, and took off down the trail. The car followed us onto the road, keeping its distance, but I knew there was a trail opening about a half-mile away. My heart was pounding. We had to slow down to make the turn onto the trail, which would give the car time to catch up. We hit the turn, veered onto a path too narrow for a car, and I glanced back just in time to see the car pass by. That's when I noticed another guy in the back seat, who must have been lying down out of sight before. Both of them were glaring at me as they sped off. We didn't stop until we were 3 miles down the trail, pulling over to catch our breath. We were too shocked to even talk, just sitting there for a good 15 minutes with the ATV motors off, listening for any sign of that car. Eventually, my friend goes, "Oh crap, we forgot the helmets, dude." The trail looped back around to our original path, so we cautiously made our way back to the parking lot. The car was long gone, thank God. We grabbed our helmets and got the hell out of there. That whole thing messed me up. I'm 21 now, and I carry a gun wherever I go. If something feels off, I stop and scan my surroundings. It's like second nature now. Growing up in a rough neighborhood taught me to trust my gut, and that day at the bridge proved why. I don't know what those guys wanted, but I'm damn glad I didn't stick around to find out. My advice? Always pay attention to what's around you. It might just save your life one day. This happened earlier last year, and it still messes with my head if I think about it too much. I'm a delivery driver for Uber Eats, been doing it as a side gig for a bit over a year to make some extra cash. Oh, and I'm a girl, which probably makes this story hit a little harder. Uber Eats is usually a chill job, but the pay's not great, especially at night. After 10 p.m., most orders are just fast food runs, and the tips are even worse than usual. I'd say maybe 2 out of 10 people tip, and that's being generous. So I don't normally do late night deliveries because they're barely worth it. But this one night, there was a bonus deal going on, complete 15 deliveries in a certain time frame, and you get an extra $75. That was music to my ears. Late night runs are perfect for that kind of thing. No traffic, open roads, you get in, get out, and go home to crash. I was on a roll, knocking out deliveries left and right. I finished my last McDonald's order around 2:30 a.m., cashed in my bonus, and decided to call it a night. For context, this was in downtown San Diego. The core of downtown is all fun restaurants and clubs, but as you move outward, it gets sketchier. Past 16th Street, it's straight up seedy, lots of homeless camps, that kind of vibe. I try to avoid that area, but to get home and hit the freeway, I had to pass through it. One more thing, I drive a beat-up 2002 Ford Focus, nothing automatic about it. The windows, you gotta crank them up and down by hand, which is a pain. Because of that, I usually keep both windows rolled down during deliveries. It's just easier to hand food through the window without messing with the crank every time. That night, I was planning to roll them up before I hit 16th Street, but I didn't get the chance. I turned down a side street heading toward the main drag, and up ahead, I saw a guy standing on the side of the road in one of those orange reflective construction vests. Downtown's always got some kind of construction going on, even at night, so I didn't think much of it at first. As I got closer, though, the guy ran into the middle of the street, waving his arms like he was signaling me to stop. I slowed down to about 10 miles an hour, then 5, trying to figure out what he wanted. Maybe he was redirecting traffic or something. But then he broke into a jog, heading straight for my car, and stopped right in front of it, blocking me from moving forward. Instantly, I felt uneasy. It's 3 a.m. I'm on a dark street, and there's not a soul around except me and this dude. I'm kicking myself for leaving my windows down. I've always wondered how I'd react in a fight or flight situation, and now I know I freeze. As I slowed down, it took me a good 5 seconds longer than it should have to realize this guy wasn't a construction worker. Sure, he had the vest and a hard hat, but something was off. Then I saw his face. He had the creepiest smile I've ever seen. At first, I thought he was just trying to be friendly, but he held that grin way too long, like way past normal. If you count to 5 while smiling at someone, you'll get how unnerving it is. That's what this guy was doing. Up close, I could tell he was probably homeless. He looked older, maybe in his 60s, but it's hard to say. Living on the streets ages people fast. His eyes were wild, and that smile, man, it reminded me of Twisty from American Horror Story, that kind of unhinged vibe. I should have just thrown the car in reverse, but my brain was in panic mode, and I couldn't think straight. I just sat there, frozen, thinking this might be how it all ends. The whole time, he didn't say a word, just stood there, staring and grinning. Then, out of nowhere, like some kind of ninja, he leapt onto the hood of my car and started slamming his fists against it. I'm talking hard, aggressive pounding. He was crawling around on his hands and knees, still staring right at me through the windshield, never breaking eye contact, never dropping that creepy smile. I was terrified. My windows being down made me feel so vulnerable, like he could just climb in if he wanted. I was scared to move, like any sudden motion, looking away or reaching to roll up the windows, might set him off. He didn't say a single word, which somehow made it worse. If he'd yelled or something, it might have been less creepy, but the silence paired with that grin and those wild eyes was pure nightmare fuel. The whole thing probably lasted 15 seconds, but it felt like forever. Then I saw headlights in my rearview mirror, a car coming up behind me from down the street. The guy saw it too. In a split second, he jumped off my hood, bolted behind my car, and ran toward the approaching vehicle. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I floored it and didn't look back until I was halfway home on the freeway, running on pure adrenaline. For a long time after that, I stopped doing night deliveries. I avoid that part of downtown completely now, taking the longer route home, and I never drive with my windows down at night, especially in sketchy areas. Looking back, I realize how naive I was. I saw the vest and hard hat and just assumed he was a legit worker, like my brain went, "Oh cool, a public servant's here to make sure I don't make a wrong turn." It was comforting for a second, until it wasn't. By the time I stopped my car, it could have been too late if he'd wanted to do something worse. I tell myself he was probably just some guy on drugs, not really meaning any harm, because that helps me sleep at night. But what gets me is how he was dressed like a road worker, acting like one at first, like he was deliberately trying to trick me into stopping. Why go through all that just to freak someone out? I don't know what he wanted, and I'm so damn glad I didn't find out. One thing's for sure, I'm never getting out of my car in a situation like that, and I've learned to trust my gut when something feels off. About 3 years ago, I was in a long-distance relationship with this guy named Peter. I was 19 at the time, and he was 17, so yeah, he was younger. Let's just say Peter wasn't exactly a great person. He had this attitude where he'd make a good first impression, charming, polite, all that, but after that, he didn't bother being nice to anyone, including me. He'd act like he didn't need to put in effort once he thought he had you hooked. I was young and naive, thinking I could change him or something, but his behavior got worse. He was straight up abusive, not just to me, but to people around us too. Eventually, it got to be too much, and I ended the relationship. The breakup wasn't too messy, all things considered, but Peter pulled this stunt where he wanted me to say the words to end it so he could play the victim. It was a pattern with him. During our fights, he'd hint at wanting to break up, but never just say it, keeping me on the hook while getting meaner. Anyway, I finally cut it off and moved on, starting a new relationship with my current boyfriend, who's awesome. Not long after, Peter texted me, saying he wanted to come by my place to pick up his stuff. I sent him a list of everything he'd left at my apartment, and he confirmed it was all correct. We set up a time for him to swing by the following Thursday at 3 p.m. I had no intention of letting him back into my home or being alone with him. I'd already noticed some red flags, like how he seemed to have wild mood swings after hearing I was in a new relationship. I blocked him on Facebook, but somehow he knew I was with someone new, which creeped me out. My boyfriend and I decided to play it safe, so we planned to meet Peter at the train station and step my place. That Thursday, my boyfriend and I were walking home from high school when my phone rang. It was Peter, yelling that he'd been waiting at the train station for over an hour. I tried to reason with him, saying I'd meet him there with his stuff since he needed to catch a train. My boyfriend came with me for backup. When we got to the station, it was empty. I live in a small town, and the train station's mostly busy during morning and evening rush hours. It's also weirdly located among regular houses, with a bunch of alleyways leading out all over town. As we stood there with his stuff, I got a text from Peter saying he could see us but wouldn't come out while my boyfriend was there. That set off alarm bells. I replied calmly, saying I wasn't interested in meeting him again, and we left his stuff on a bench at the station. On our way home, I got another text from him, claiming he'd left a gift for me in my mailbox. That freaked us out even more. It meant he might have been near my house. It was entirely possible he'd watched us at the station and then ran to my place, but when we checked, there was nothing in the mailbox except a bill. After that, Peter went nuts with texts and calls, bombarding me with messages. I ignored them, and eventually things calmed down and life went back to normal. Or so I thought. Then I got a call from Peter's older brother, who sounded worried. Apparently, Peter had disappeared and taken one of his brother's gas pistols. I was speechless. I hadn't seen or heard from him, and I figured it was just another one of his dramatic stunts. But later that same day, my boyfriend noticed police officers walking around the basement staircase outside the apartment building we lived in. He'd been out grocery shopping, something he did every day, around 4 p.m. The next day, my boyfriend's mom called and told us about a story in the newspaper. It described an unnamed young man from Peterstown who'd been arrested for trying to rob a pizza place, the one right below our apartment. He was armed with a knife, a gas pistol, and lighter fluid. He claimed he wasn't robbing the place, but was there to visit his ex, which I'm pretty sure meant me. The police said he also had a mask, fake papers, and a wig in a duffel bag, which he tossed down the staircase when he saw my boyfriend. He jumped a fence and tried to get into the pizza place right around the time my boyfriend walked out our front door, meaning Peter was hiding right beside it. I was beyond freaked out. The thought that he was that close, with all that gear, sent chills down my spine. The sad part? He didn't get charged with anything serious because he was a minor, and his dad had a military background and a lot of money. I thought that was the end of it, that the whole nightmare was behind me. But then just 2 weeks ago, I got a declaration of love from a fake email account signed by Peter. It brought all that fear rushing back. I'm just glad I never let him back into my life and that my boyfriend was there with me through it all. That whole ordeal taught me to trust my instincts when something or someone feels off because you never know how far they might go. This story is a wild one, and it's been on my mind lately because the guy involved recently tried to friend my husband on Facebook, dragging up a ton of crazy memories. Let me take you back. I got married at 18, super young, and by the time I was 20, my ex-husband Bobby and I had moved into a rental house in a nice suburb outside Chicago. The place had a big mother-in-law suite in the basement where our friend Nick lived. I was about halfway through nursing school, juggling early clinical rotations once a week. I'm not a morning person, so to maximize sleep, I'd load my car with my bags, books, and even my purse the night before. Not the smartest move, I know. My street smarts were seriously lacking. One night before a clinical, I asked Bobby to grab a book from my car. He forgot to lock the door afterward, and the next morning, my purse was gone. I was freaking out because I just started a new job as a nurse's aide at a hospital, and my social security card was still in my wallet. Major mistake. I filed a police report, but things got weird fast. We started getting ding-dong ditches at all hours. Our cars, mine, Bobby's, and Nick's, were vandalized with strange graffiti. Our house got egged, and Nick's tires were slashed. At first, we thought it was just neighborhood kids pulling pranks, but when the damages started costing real money, we called the police again. Then Bobby noticed piles of cigarette butts outside our bedroom window while mowing the lawn. Creepy, right? The cops came, took a report, and suggested we get car alarms and brighter floodlights for the driveway, but that was it. A few weeks later, at 2:30 a.m., I got a call from the police in a neighboring town. They'd picked up a guy named Craig J. with my ID on him. He claimed I was his girlfriend. I told the cops I'd never heard of him and had no clue who he was. They said I could pick up my ID at the station in a few days. At this point, I still didn't connect the dots between the theft and the weird stuff happening around our house. Then things escalated. I started getting strange messages on MySpace, this was 2009, and Facebook from obvious fake accounts. They were long, rambling, and made no sense, but they kept coming. This person even messaged my friends, which was super unsettling. I deleted my MySpace, blocked the accounts on Facebook, but new ones kept popping up. Somehow they got my email and started sending me creepy messages there too. The messages weren't outright threatening, but they were way too personal, like this person knew details about me, stuff only someone close to me or someone watching me would know. It was unnerving. One night, my friend Lauren and I were chilling on the couch watching TV. Bobby, Lauren's husband, and some other friends were out for the night. While we're sitting there, we heard something like the garage door shaking. Our garage was attached to the house, so I went to check, thinking maybe it was a raccoon. We had issues with them before. Nothing seemed off, but the noise kept happening, moving to the kitchen window. It was a distinct sound, like someone scratching or knocking hard on the glass. We called our husband, but they didn't pick up. Lauren and I were getting freaked out, debating whether to call the cops. What if it was just an animal or a tree branch? We didn't want to look dumb. Then Lauren's face went pale, staring past me. I spun around and saw the front door handle jiggling, like someone was trying to get in. We bolted to the back of the house, into one of the bedrooms. Lauren grabbed a knife from the kitchen butcher block, and I snatched a small hammer from the junk drawer. We locked ourselves in, shoved the dresser against the door, and called the police, staying on the line like the dispatcher told us. We were scared out of our minds, but ready to fight if we had to. I'd go for the head with a hammer, and Lauren would aim for the gut with a knife. That was the plan. Thankfully, the cops showed up, banging on the door and shouting, "Police." We saw the red and blue lights through the window, let them in, but they found no signs of anyone or any attempted break-in. They took a report and left, but we were still shaken. A few months later, our close friend Sean was renovating his apartment and needed a place to crash with his girlfriend. Bobby and I let them stay in the third bedroom. The first night they were there, we were woken up at 2 a.m. by Sean screaming at someone. Bobby and I rushed to his room, and Sean and his girlfriend were wide awake, lights on, looking terrified. The window screen was sliced and flapping in the wind. Sean said he woke up to someone cutting the screen with what he thought was a knife and starting to climb in. We called the cops again, and they dusted for fingerprints. They came back as a match for Craig J. Turns out, I vaguely knew Craig from high school. He was a year younger, but I couldn't remember ever really talking to him. He lived a few blocks from my parents' house. I asked some high school friends about him, and they said he was nice but odd, quiet, and definitely a bit strange. He dropped out before graduation. The cops dropped the chilling line. He probably didn't know anyone was in that bedroom and thought it was empty. That sent shivers down our spines. They arrested Craig, and he spun this wild story about how we were secret lovers, that I'd been ignoring him, but we had a relationship, and he'd been in my house tons of times. Total nonsense. He got charged with trespassing and breaking and entering, served maybe a month, and had to pay a fine. I got a restraining order against him. After he got out, I didn't hear from him for a while. By Christmas 2010, I was 23, and Bobby and I decided to divorce, not because of Craig, just unrelated stuff. Nick had moved out by then, too. When the lease ended, I moved to a cheaper suburb, into a 4-unit apartment building with a locked entrance that you could only get into with a key or if someone buzzed you in. I lived on the second floor, which felt safer. I graduated nursing school by then and was working at a nursing home. But in the spring and summer of 2011, the weirdness started again. I get calls at work that would hang up as soon as I answered. Letters started showing up in the staff-only mailbox at work, addressed to me with no return address. The creepy emails from random accounts picked up again, long, rambling messages acting like we were old friends with some deep connection. I never remembered even speaking to Craig in high school, but from his messages, I pieced together that he'd had a crush on me back then. He seemed to think me getting my purse stolen was some cosmic sign we were meant to be together. It was delusional. I called the cops, but since there were no direct threats, they said there wasn't much they could do except issue a cease and desist or keep an eye out. This went on for a while, and then one night I woke up at 2 a.m. to the doorbell ringing. I looked out the window, and there was Craig, lit up by the floodlight. I started crying, half asleep and panicking. I ran across the hall and banged on my neighbor's door, an older divorced guy who lived alone. He went downstairs, confronted Craig, and told him the cops were coming. I called the police, and Craig took off. They filed a report and said they'd talk to him, but it only made things worse. Craig started messaging my friends on Facebook, asking about me, saying he had important information or that I owed him money. My friends blocked him, but he kept at it. Then he showed up at my younger sister's apartment in the city, where she lived with friends. He confronted her while she had people over, and they kicked him out and called the cops, who said he hadn't technically broken any laws but offered her a restraining order. After that, he showed up at my cousin's high school cross-country practice, demanding info about me. The coach got involved, and it turned into a fight. Craig was banned from the school grounds, but again, no real consequences. He even called my nursing home's administrator, claiming he needed to talk to me about something important. My boss, who knew about the situation, told him he'd be arrested for trespassing if he showed up. I was paranoid beyond belief at this point. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. By summer 2012, I was almost 25. My friend Stacy, who was incidentally Sean's ex, moved in with me temporarily while she looked for a place. She was dating a new guy and often stayed at his place. One day, I worked a double shift at the nursing home from 7 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. Stacy texted me around 3:30 p.m., saying she wouldn't be home that night because she was going out with her guy. When I got home close to midnight, I noticed the door was unlocked. I figured Stacy might have forgotten to lock it, but I was uneasy. I peered inside, scanning the kitchen and living room, and something felt off. I always left one or two lights on when I was out, but the apartment was pitch black. My instincts went into overdrive, every alarm in my head screaming. My Puerto Rican neighbor downstairs was known for his weekend parties, and I could hear one going on. I bolted down there, burst into the party, and told him what was up. He probably thought I was nuts but agreed to come upstairs with me. We checked the apartment, and at first, it seemed fine. I was starting to wonder if I was just paranoid, if Stacy and her boyfriend had left in a hurry and forgotten to lock the door or turn on the lights. My neighbor, half joking, pulled open the pantry door, and I'll never forget what we saw. Craig crouched inside. My heart stopped. My neighbor put him in a chokehold, and I called the police. They came and arrested him, but to this day, I don't know what he was planning. The building's back door was open because of the party, so he probably just walked in, and no one batted an eye thinking he was a guest. How he got into my apartment, though? My theory is Stacy, who was from the country, wasn't used to locking doors. I lived in a suburb right on the edge of a big city, so I always locked up tight, knob and deadbolt. Stacy denied leaving it unlocked, but it's the only explanation that makes sense unless Craig was some master locksmith. After that, I didn't go anywhere alone for a long time. I got paranoid, suspicious of giving out my number or any personal info. Craig was charged with aggravated stalking, breaking and entering, and some other stuff I can't recall. He served time, and I met his parents in court. They seemed shockingly normal, apologetic, and said he was bipolar and mentally ill. I didn't hear from him for years until 2016, when he found me on Facebook again. I was 29 by then and shut it down hard, telling him any contact would mean police involvement. I blocked him everywhere I could. Recently, he tried friending my new husband on Facebook, and we blocked him too. I still deal with paranoia from all this. Once I parked near a baseball diamond, and my car windshield got a spider crack from what was probably a baseball, but my first thought was, oh no, is he back? My life got messed up twice because of unlocked doors, my car and likely my apartment. It also didn't help that Craig either sold or lost my social security card. Someone used it to file for Medicare benefits in Arizona and got a job without paying taxes, leaving me with a huge IRS mess. My credit was trashed for years, and I still keep a lock on my social security number and watch my accounts like a hawk. I have an acquaintance who monitors Craig's Facebook, which isn't private. He seems to go through quiet periods, then spirals into overposting, oversharing, and acting unhinged. I believe his parents about his mental illness, and part of me feels bad for him. I've been a nurse for almost a decade, some of it in psych, and I know the mind can be a weird place. But those were some of the worst years of my life. The anxiety and chaos he caused stuck with me. I slept with my couch pushed against my apartment door for 2 years after that. Even now, married and in a new place, when I'm home alone, I fight the urge to stack furniture in front of the door. The moral of the story: never leave your purse in your car, and always lock your damn doors. This happened when I was 12 years old, living in a small town in southern Indiana where kids still played outside till the streetlights came on. I'm a guy, pretty average, always running around with my buddies back then, getting into dumb kid stuff. Our neighborhood was safe, or so we thought, with houses all close together and a big wooded area at the edge where we'd mess around. One summer evening, we were playing hide and seek, and I almost got lured into something that still makes my skin crawl thinking about it. It was just after supper, probably around 7 p.m., still light out but getting that golden glow where the shadows start stretching long. Me and my friends, Tommy, Sarah, and a couple others, were playing in the empty lot next to my house, a patchy field that backed up to the woods. We'd used the trees and bushes as hiding spots, and it was my turn to hide. Tommy was the seeker, counting to 50 with his hands over his eyes by the old oak we used as base. I took off running, looking for a good spot, and decided to duck into the woods, just far enough to stay out of sight but close enough to hear the game. I found a big fallen log about 20 yards into the trees, perfect for crouching behind. I was hunkered down, trying not to giggle, when I heard footsteps crunching on the leaves nearby, not fast, but steady, like someone was walking with purpose. I figured it was Tommy sneaking around to find us, so I stayed quiet, peeking over the log. But it wasn't Tommy. It was some guy, maybe in his 30s, wearing a dirty flannel shirt and a trucker hat pulled low. He was carrying a plastic bag, like from a grocery store, and he was looking around, his eyes scanning the trees like he was searching for something, or someone. I froze, my heart starting to pound. I didn't know this guy. He didn't look like he belonged here. Our town was small. Strangers stuck out like a sore thumb. He hadn't seen me yet, so I ducked lower, praying he'd just keep walking. Then he stopped, maybe 10 feet away, and called out in this soft, creepy voice, "Hey kid, you out here?" I got some candy in my bag. "Wanna see?" My stomach dropped. I was only 12, but I knew enough from school assemblies about strangers to know this was bad news. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just pressed myself into the dirt behind the log. He kept talking, his voice all sweet and fake, like he was trying to sound nice. "Come on, I know you're hiding. I saw you run in here. I got some chocolate, the good kind. Let's go for a walk, and I'll show you a cool spot deeper in the woods." My hands were shaking now, and I could feel the sweat on my neck even though it wasn't that hot. I peeked over the log again, just a quick glance, and saw him step closer, his boots crunching right toward me. He was smiling, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was too stiff, like he was trying too hard. And in his hand, half hidden by the bag, I saw something glint, a knife small but sharp, like the kind my dad used to clean fish. That's when I knew I had to get out of there. I didn't care about the game anymore. I bolted up, my sneakers slipping on the leaves, and sprinted back toward the field. I heard him yell, "Hey, wait," and then the crunch of his boots as he started running after me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it had burst, and I could hear him getting closer, his steps heavy and fast. I was screaming, "Tommy, Sarah, help," as I broke out of the trees into the open lot. Tommy was still by the oak, looking confused, but Sarah and the others popped out from their hiding spots when they heard me. I didn't stop running until I reached Tommy, practically crashing into him. "There's a guy. He's got a knife." I gasped, my voice all high and panicky. Tommy grabbed my arm, looking toward the woods, and Sarah ran over, asking what was wrong. I pointed back at the trees, trying to catch my breath, but the guy wasn't there anymore. The woods were quiet, like nothing had happened. The others looked at me like I was crazy, but I swore I wasn't making it up. He was right there, saying he had candy, trying to get me to go with him. I said, my hand shaking so bad I could barely point. Tommy, who was a year older and braver than me, grabbed a stick and said we should check it out. I begged him not to, and Sarah was already running to my house to get my mom. By the time my parents came out, the sun was dipping low, and we told them everything. My dad, who's not the kind of guy to mess around, grabbed his flashlight and a baseball bat and went to the edge of the woods with Tommy's dad. They didn't go far, just looked around, but they didn't find anyone. No guy, no plastic bag, no knife, just some trampled leaves where I said I'd been hiding. My mom hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and she called the cops while my dad stood guard by the lot. The police showed up, 2 officers in a cruiser, and I told them what happened, the guy, the candy, the knife, how he chased me. They searched the woods but came up empty. They said it might have been a drifter passing through, maybe trying to scare me, but they didn't sound too sure. They told my parents to keep an eye out and said they'd patrol the area for a while. I didn't sleep that night, kept my window locked and my curtains shut, picturing that guy's creepy smile. For weeks, I was too scared to play outside, sticking close to my parents or staying in my room. I never saw the guy again, but I kept wondering who he was and what he wanted. Was he just some creep trying to mess with kids, or was he planning something worse? The way he had that knife, the way he ran after me, it didn't feel like a prank. My friends believed me, but some kids at school said I made it up for attention, which made me feel worse. My parents stopped letting me play near the woods, and we moved to a different town a year later, partly because Mom said she didn't feel safe anymore. If any of you have ever had a close call like that as a kid, how do you stop feeling like it could happen again? I'm 24 now, and I still get jumpy in the woods, and I'd kill for some way to shake that fear.